Hello, everyone. Welcome to Jamaica 411, where lies die and truth prevails. I want to welcome everyone who is joining me today. I'd like to welcome new visitors. I'd like to welcome you, and I want you to know that I appreciate you. Please remember to subscribe, hit the like button if you like the video, and share. For my regular visitors and my regular subscribers, welcome back. I also want you to know that I appreciate you greatly. It is you sharing and liking and leaving your comments, which is keeping us going. And I want you to know I appreciate that very greatly. So now that I have done the preliminary and welcome everyone, let's get into the business of the thing. Now you must be wondering, what am I coming with today? All right, I am bringing you another episode on Mark Golding. And I know some persons may be saying, but why is she only focused on Mark Golding? The Jamaican electorate is going to be asked to select a leader, a prime minister, even though they're voting for the member of parliament. One among them will be prime minister, Mark Golding or Andrew Holness. And one of the things that have been happening in our country, which may be the reason why we can't seem to move, is that, just as Karen Cross said, we have a habit of voting against the government and not necessarily voting for the person who is in opposition. And a good example of that would be in 2016. In 2016, the people were voting against the PNP because they thought it was a bad government and they are suffering. Now they want to vote against Andrew, the man that they put in, because they thought and now think that he's a bad government. At the time, they were voting against the PNP. They were not looking at him as whether or not he would make a better leader than Portia. They were voting against the PNP. Now end up with a man that they are complaining about. Same people complaining about him. And now want to change him for somebody else. Now, if we want to end this cycle where our voters are not thinking, they are acting out with their emotions and not thinking, we must engage them in a discourse. And the best way to do so is to let them know who it is the persons are, or who the persons are that they are electing. Andrew Holness is already there. Everybody sees him and what he is. At the time when he was to be elected, we were at pains to point out to the voters that this man you cannot put there because he's building a house, and the house, the amount of money that he spent on that house, his salary cannot explain it. He has no investment to explain it. Therefore, the source of the money is questionable. We told them that. They didn't want to listen because they were too tied up in their emotion about how things bad and all this kind of thing. Now, the strangest thing about it is that the very same policies that the PNP had, which was so bad that the people felt they needed a change of government, it's the same policies that this government is using now. It's the same policies. They haven't changed anything. What they have done really is put in place a set of priorities which does not in any way further the programs that were started with Peter Phillips and Portia Simpson. So it's like there is a dearth for ideas that are impactful on the people. Outside of the minimum wage increases, you hardly have anything else that is impactful on the people. And so the people out there are telling you that there are people suffering. Nobody's saying that I am suffering, It's other people that are suffering. right? And now they are thinking that they want a change. Here is the problem. They already made a mistake when they put Andrew Holness there and voted out Portia and put Andrew Holness there because they were not thinking. And now basically what they're saying, if they're saying they need a change, they're basically saying that situation is now worse than it was under that structural adjustment that took place under the PNP. That's what they're basically saying. And therefore, for them now to be asked to vote again to determine who the next prime minister will be for the next 5 years, if they do not think, they may end up with a situation where they get a prime minister again who is worse than the one that is there. Now, it's not for me to decide for the Jamaican people how they vote. That's a personal decision that each person must make. All I can do is to bring the information so that now that you know Andrew and you know Mark, then now you can make a proper decision. And then at the end of the day, you will not regret it. Or you shouldn't. Because you were told this is Mark and you already know this is Andrew and you choose. And if at the end of the day what you choose is worse, if you stick with Andrew and things get worse, or you go with Mark and things get worse, it's your choice, but you can't say you never know. That's my point. And so for the time being, I will forever be bringing you information on Mark Goling, especially whenever he offers us some clues into his mind and his mind's workings, into what he really believes and thinks. Those are clues as to his character, his integrity, and whether or not he is likely to be able to do anything for the country. You know, if it turns out that he is not the man and the People's National Party insists on continuing with him, and if at the end of the day the Jamaican people choose to stay with Andrew Holness, the only thing I have to say about that is that if you come to the conclusion that what we have or what is to come from Mark Goling is not going to make the country any better than what we now have, then you have to decide how you're going to vote, because sticking with the evil that you know, which is some person's way of doing things, is one way of saying that you want a change. And the PNP will just have to make that change or stay in opposition if this is what you want. If, on the other hand, what you want to do, if you think the government is arrogant and taking you for granted and you want to teach them a lesson, the only thing I have to say to that is that in teaching the government a lesson by voting them out, you have to be certain that what is coming behind this government is not going to make things worse for you, at least not greatly worse for you. But whatever it is that you do and whatever it is that you decide, you have to be very careful. You have to look at the character of the person, because every single person who comes to the job, they have shown their character before they got the power into their hands. We saw Portia in opposition. We saw Portia in government. We saw Bruce. We saw Siaga. We saw Michael. We saw all of them. And whatever it is that they were while they were in opposition, that's exactly what they brought to government. For those of you who may have heard, those of you who may have seen it. I didn't get a chance to see it, even though I was so close to the event. I remember the day when Michael Manley passed and went to a Rockabessa. And then when we were on the hills in Boscobel, we heard that Michael lied down, crossed the road in front of a truck and stopped the truck, turned the truck across the road and had his meeting, right? That's exactly who Michael Manley was. That's exactly who Michael Manley was when he became Prime Minister. A radical man. A man who does things differently. It ended up, we ended up on a collision course with the Jamaica Labour Party from a man who displayed a desire to become Prime Minister and was unwilling to stop at anything to bring that about. He went abroad and told Jamaicans and told investors not to invest in Jamaica because it was going communist. The temperature was raised and Manley was not going to back down. And he used his majority and Siaga used his power, collaborated with outside people, CIA agent. We didn't know none of that until years later when the same CIA agents came and told us what they were doing in Jamaica at the time. And all because Siaga wanted to be prime minister. But Manley was so popular, he was so disliked. And then the PNP brought in all these policies which changed the way in which we do business in Jamaica in terms of the social climate, maternity leave. Minimum wage was there before, but the minimum wage was increased. You had Jamal to help the 60% people who couldn't read or write to be able to read and write. You had a land reform, which was much promised for persons who were, for lands that were abandoned, and the government sought to regularize them so they can get their titles, and all these other things that were taking place. There is no way Siaga, a man who's a white man, much disliked, would have seen power. And so he decided to step it up a notch. The economy was so bad that eventually, even though people didn't like Siaga, they went and they voted for him. And no sooner than they voted for him, they realized that all that was happening was really not Manley's fault as they claimed, but an orchestration, which is what the PNP was claiming. But they never believed the PNP because PNP was using what is known as propaganda, right? They had JBC putting out some stories. You had on the other side, you had the Gleaner putting out pro-JLP stories, and people just didn't know what to believe. So when the PNP were telling us that the CIA was in the country undermining the country and the economic situation was due to outside influence and not the government, we never believed it. When we started to believe it when the day after election, we heard on the news that the police was called and told to go to such and such a intersection of which road and then find a bag of guns, M16 rifles. And to go to another intersection and then find another bag of M16 rifles. And that is how we know, right, that the thing was not. And plus all of the shootings and the killings that were going on for how much months stopped overnight. Overnight it just stopped when the election result was announced the night. So if we had not relent to Siaga's desire to become prime minister, all of that would have been carrying on. All of that killing and thing would have been carrying on. It was carrying on from 1976. They lost the election and they carry on and they carry on and they went on and they went on and they went on. The two sides were at it. But I think that is only the Labour Party, because when the Labour Party started, the other side was not going to relent. And so at the night of the election, when the results were announced and the Jamaica Labour Party won and practically almost wiped out the PNP, even PJ lost his seat. That was when all of the night, as a matter of fact, that night, you could hear the guns them I was living in Kingston, all over the damn place. You could hear the heavy weapons them firing in celebration. And then the following day, all was calm. So who was behind all of these shootings and wars that were going on? Which side was really the antagonist? Or is it a case where, all right, so the people have spoken and everybody just accept and just say, all right, I can put on the gun now and let's get on with business? Was that it? Perhaps it was. The food that was off the shelf, everything had to be married. You got to buy a tin of bully beef, or you got to buy um, sugar or rice or condensed milk. Everything was married to the other things that them couldn't sell. And if you're not a regular customer, know the owner, you can't get some of the things either. Everything was short. Supermarket chef Beard. You see, the day after the election, when it was announced the night that the Jamaica Labour Party won, when you go out the supermarket, everything was back on the shelf. That was a stupid mistake that they made. They should have at least waited a month or two and gradually put the things back on the shelf. And then we would have continued to think that it was Manly's mismanagement of the economy why we couldn't get food. We couldn't get basic food items. But no, they put them back on the shelf the very day after the election. And the whole of our eye opened up and realized that it was true. And 2 years into the government, we realized that the management skill that they were boasting that Siaga had, where they said that he was a financial whiz, when he run up the budget deficit from 353 million to 1.1 billion, that's when people realized. And we couldn't see nothing done. We couldn't see nothing done in the country. We don't see any benefit. There was no benefit to the people, nothing. And yet there was this high budget deficit. And that's when his popularity plummeted and never rose after that. Except for 83, when it appeared as though persons were in support of the invasion of Grenada. He may have got a little bump. But had he gone into that election with the PNP, he would not have won. He would not have won. But they decided to, because the young people were so captured by the PNP, he decided to go into the election without a new voters list, which meant me, who would have been 18 the year when the election was held in 1980. I was not on the voters list. And in 83, when I would be 21 years old, if the PNP had contested the election, I would have been deprived of my right to vote because Siaga decided that he wanted to play cute. And so they boycotted the election. So what I'm saying, telling you all of that to tell you this, that by 1989, by 86, when we had the first election, Siaga was delaying the local government election, taking away all of the powers from it and giving it to some private company called Parks and Markets, right? NSWME, I think they are being called now. Take away all the functions, garbage collection, all of it, and then held the election. And we wiped them out. I think it was a clean sweep. We wiped them out. Won everything. Well, not all the seats, but we won all of the parishes. The PNP did. And by 1989, even with Gilbert and all of what was being done to help people in Gilbert, it still didn't help Siaga. And the JP got a whipping in 1989. Why am I telling you all of this? I'm telling you all of this because it relates to everything that has been happening since. Our people are emotional. We don't use our brain. And because we are emotional, people are playing on our emotion and getting themselves elected and cannot deliver. If we were to use our brain for a change, let's start thinking about these things for a change. We may find that we can be strategic in how we go about improving governance. Well, we have to start somewhere. When the people voted out the PNP in 1980, they were voting against the PNP and what they thought was the mismanagement of the economy by Michael Manley. Until Siaga came in, and you would hear them in the marketplace saying, bad to bad, when PNP was there. And remember now, the economy was in shambles, couldn't even get food to buy on market nowhere at all, everything short, because they were holding back on the supply in order to create the impression that the government is bad. In the same 1980s, Siaga, having told the world that the country was going communist, could not get an investment because Manley was still there, the PNP was still there. So why should we come and invest in a country where any minute now the people might put them back? So he had to go and backtrack and tell the world that the country was never going communist. Basically saying that what I said was not true, or perhaps trying to say what I said was a mistake. No, we were never going communist. That's what he had to do. The people went and voted in for the Labour Party, and by 1989 they regretted that vote and voted them out back. Bad beating. And by 93, I think the Labour Party was down to nine seats because the people made up their mind that they will never put Edward Siaga back in government. He would never see Jamaica House again, except as a visitor. That was what was on the street, and people were determined. And so because of that, because Siaga was determined to stay there, the Jamaica Labour Party stayed in opposition for 18 and a half years, from 1989 until 2007. And that was because of one man. But it took us 9 years of pain and suffering of that man before we came to that conclusion. In other words, we were not thinking, and in some respects we were manipulated by the events. And it was only after we voted, or those who voted, because I couldn't vote, those who voted, after they voted and see what Siaga is, now they finally get to see Siaga now, they realized that they made a mistake and they wanted the change, but was deprived of it in 83, and when they got the chance in 89, they got rid of him. And they kept him out. So between 1993, when PJ Patterson took over, and 2007, it may be reasonable to say that a lot of persons voted against the opposition, and that was what the PNP was benefiting from. But that is only to a certain extent, because PJ had made a lot of changes in terms of the personal comforts of people. People could now buy cars. People had phones in their home. They never usually have that before in the rural areas. Water was expanding, water supply, electricity supply was expanding, and so on and so forth. So the quality of life had improved. Plus, with the competition, prices fell. Prices were falling because of competition, increased competition, although unfortunately the competition was coming from outside, which put pressure on our Jamaican dollar and caused a free fall. And that, with what else was happening, and we'll get to that at some other time, with the money supply being increased by 120%, and then the high interest rate, and the whole thing came to a climax, and the economy collapsed. At least the banking sector collapsed, and it took down, well, no, it was let's see now, who was it that collapsed? It was the businesses that actually collapsed under the weight of the high interest rate. Those who refused to go and get equity, because that was their option. You're a company, you have shares, you have high debts, you go and sell the shares, you package your company, you go and sell the shares, raise money, pay down the debt, and get rid of it. Many of them refused to do it because of pride. And so they went under. And when they went under, they took the banks down with them. So the matter of selecting a leader, the indirect selection of a leader, is not a matter for us to joke about and get emotional about. It's something that we must think about. You look at the two and you determine which one is best, or which one, if the two of them are bad, which one is the better of the two. You have to make that choice. Or you could refrain from voting. Now, in the matter of Mark Golding and Andrew Holness, Andrew Holness is a bad government because of the choices that they're making. But when you look at the way in which Mark Golding is running the People's National Party, because that's the only place he has ever run in, never run anything in all his bond days, never run anything, just a lawyer. When you look at the way in which they're running the affairs of the PNP, the gross disregard for the constitution of the party, the sidelining and victimizing of persons who did not vote for him, and especially the lack of democracy in the party now, and the systems that he put in place to ensure that they can't remove him. This is a character and characteristics of a man that you are seeing. Imagine a man like that put now in charge of Jamaica. He's going to emulate exactly what he has been practicing in the PNP. He's going to be trying to, or may try to, alter the constitution, just as he did in the PNP, in such a way that will keep him in power. I'm just saying to you that when a man shows you his colors, believe him. When he shows you who he is, believe him. Looking at Andrew Holness is also flaunting with the Constitution, but in such a stupid way that they cannot succeed. They keep losing, right? They don't seem to have many bright lawyers over on that side for some strange reason. And so even though he has tried to flout the Constitution, it is not to keep himself in power. It is to get whatever it is that he wants to get and whatever it is that he's trying to achieve. And P.J. Patterson was grossly noted for that as well. So it's not strange. It's a problem that we have in this country with leaders who behave like spoiled children. They want what they want and they must have what they want and they don't care what they have to do to get it. Portia Simpson, I would say, was the exception to that rule. She was about poor people and she stuck to her guns about poor people. So let us now examine Mark Golding himself. This is a post that was made on his Twitter page. He said here, with the limited land space available to us and a growing population that we will need to feed, we must find the right synergy between increasing food production and sustaining our natural resources. Now, this is part of what he proposes to be the PNP's policy for the future. And he's saying, if you elect me and elect the PNP and elect me to be your prime minister, this is what I would do. I would create a synergy that would increase the food production and at the same time sustain our natural resources. No specifics. You wouldn't be getting any specifics at this time. However, it's the line which says and the growing population that I want us to focus on. Because if you are going to bring about changes or you're going to bring about a policy, if you're going to be doing anything at all, planning to change something in the future, you must begin on a correct premise. If you begin on a false premise, then you're going to be spending the country's resources and you will not achieve the goal because you began on a false premise. So what is a false premise here? The false premise here is that there is a growing population. There is not a growing population in Jamaica. With a limited land space available to us and a growing population, there is no growing population. As a matter of fact, our population has been decreasing. And I'm saying to you, Jamaica, looking at Mark Gold, this is not the first time he has been saying things without checking them out to make sure it's correct. You have here a man who wants to be prime minister. And not for the first time, he's showing that he doesn't know anything at all about the country. He's a privileged man. He calls himself a privileged son of the soil. He's a white man. And once again, he's showing that his time spent in Upper St. Andrew was not spent in learning anything about this country. How can he say a growing population when everybody who was under his post, the labor rights and others, were telling him, no, where you get that from? Even the Planning Institute, where he's supposed to be getting his information from, is saying that the population is declining. We are having less children. And then there is a migration factor. So how can he be proposing policies that is based upon something that is not real? How is it that he doesn't know that the population in Jamaica is declining? And how is it that he is setting about creating a policy without checking the facts behind them? Where did he get this idea from that the population is growing? So if he doesn't know anything about the country, something as simple as this, that the country's population is declining, he doesn't know that. What does he know? What does he know? So he is sitting down. I mean, you have to think about this also. Did he sit down with his colleagues and come up with this idea about the synergy to increase the food production because we have a growing population? Because if he had, I'm sure one of them would say to him, no, leader, the population is actually declining. So this is Mark Golding, I have to assume, sitting down in his little corner, making up some stories as to what he thinks sounds good and might garner him some vote. Is that what is happening? Are you going to tell me that the other 77 people that are in his shadow cabinet, shadowing the shadows, and then at the same time you have the junior shadow, all of these people, he sat down and said, come, let us formulate policies for Jamaica. And none of them could say to him, no, leader, the population is not growing. Is it that they don't know? Or is it that he has been coming up with these ideas by himself? Because even if he was sitting with his small rise group, somebody in there must know that the population is not growing. So this is an indication that what you see on his page, this is not something that the party has decided on. This is him just speaking out of whatever he thinks that he needs to say to, I don't know, get a conversation going. The people have been pressuring him to put forward his ideas in how to solve the country's problem. And he's coming to tell us that our population is growing, so we're going to need a synergy between where all that coming from. This is a one-man show we're looking at, is it? Is this a one-man show we're looking at? So everything that he wrote on his page, everything that he mentioned is in the budget. None of that was due to any consultation with anybody. It appears. And this is what is giving us the clue Because when you're looking for a clue, the clue doesn't have to be big, Small things that tell you what you need to know about the mind and the workings of somebody's mind. He doesn't check the facts. He's just making up things as he goes along. Is that it, or is it that he's not remembering things? Which is what I suspect could be happening too. That there's a possibility, for him to be making these simple mistakes, it seems to me that there's something wrong. Either he's having some memory issues, or he has some kind of mental issues which is causing him not to be able to be as sharp as he probably was at some point in his life. These are old information. Years ago, the population was growing. But the new situation, the new paradigm is that the population has been declining. Information from 2021 is saying the population has declined. Is he having some short-term memory problems? So when you're going to vote, you have to take everything into consideration. At the end of the day, when you weigh, because you don't have the government there, if you weigh the government and you weigh this and you say to yourself, well, yeah, but you think that there is some benefit in changing the government, vote that way. You have to decide. But think about it, because you may end up in a position where you have a man now who is showing that he don't know about this country. So the plans he's coming up with, he's not consulting with anybody. This is what this is showing. He's not consulting. It's a one-man show. And you have to decide whether that would be of benefit to you. Now, you may say to yourself, but if me go stick with Andrew with all him arrogance, him not going to get worse? Very possibly. But what it does, or what it will do, is ensure that Mark Golding goes, and the PNP will have to find somebody. And this time around, they're going to have to find somebody that can win the election. And by winning the election, I mean somebody that you would be inclined to vote for because you like them, you think they are credible, you like what they're doing in them constituency, you like the things that they're saying, and you like the things that they are doing. So that is the benefit of holding on to whoever it is that you want to hold on to. If you think that you want to get rid of Brogard and they won't damage you in any way to put in Mark Golding for a 5-year stint, if you're a Labourite or inclined to support the Labour Party, and you know that once you get rid of Andrew Holness, the Labour Party might get rid of him. But I don't think that will happen unless he wants to go. Because when you look at the opinion poll, he was miles ahead of everybody else. And they're not going to get rid of somebody unless somebody behind has some kind of popularity, and there's nobody. Not even, I think Christopherson was at 8%. And Holness was at 29%, I think it was. 28%. So there's nobody there. So if you vote him out, you're going to have him as opposition leader. And you may have to turn around and put him in back. Right? At the same time, you may keep him out, like what they did with Seaga, and force the Labour Party to find somebody else. Likewise, if you're of the opinion that Mark Golding is not the man that you want to see as your Prime Minister because of his many faults and intellectual frailties, and you stick with Andrew Holness, then what will happen is that the PNP will be forced to shake Mark loose. Mark is, though, trying to set himself up, like how Eddie Seaga did, to make sure that they can't shake him loose. Because he has a lot of people who supports him. Push out the ones that, that was in support of somebody else and put them into seats that he believes he can win. As long as you don't identify those particular people, if you go and vote for those people, if you want to get rid of Mark and you go and you vote for those people who are in support of Mark Golding, the risers that he put in these seats, and they form the majority in the parliament over what we call authentic PNP, the old-time Michael Manley, Portia Simpson, Dr. Peter Phillips PNP. then what will happen is that you will never be able to get rid of Mark. Because those people are going to make sure, because they're in the majority, that Mark is the one that stays there till them son him or him feel like going. And then now you're going to end up with a situation where you have to keep voting in wholeness, or just don't vote until wholeness is there. So if you want to get rid of Mark Golding, you have to not support those candidates that are risers that you put in the seats. It means you're going to take a sacrifice for another 4 or 5 years and stay with the Labour Party. That's what that would mean. But you will get rid of Mark. And after you get rid of Mark and get whoever it is that you want, assuming that there is somebody there that you want, then now in earnest, you can pressure the government to call another election. A government is only entitled to be government until such time when they have the majority, the support of the majority of the people. The day that they lose the support of the majority of the people, that's when they have to call an election. That's how our system works. On the other hand, if Brogard is a man that you see as a big problem, how are you going to get rid of Brogard? It's going to be difficult because he's still the most popular of the Labour Party people in the parliament. So even if you vote him out, he'll become opposition leader and there to form the government again if and when Mark Golding fails, because not many of us see any reason why he should succeed. Go and look in his constituency. The man is a billionaire many times over. And a billionaire many times over, he has no problem with resources. He spends only about 2 million out of it every year. That's what he spends on himself. And all his expenses, that's what the Integrity Commission summary of his statutory declaration suggests. So it's not like he has billions and spending billions and therefore he's stretched. The man is just mean. And he's not doing much in the way to help those people. In other words, the man is not a socialist. A socialist would get all that money and spend a good deal of it trying to elevate people. That's what a socialist would do. He's not. He's a capitalist. Believe that whatever money he earns, it's his. And you want to earn your money, you're going to go earn it too. That's their attitude. So getting rid of Andrew Holness is not going to be as simple. Getting rid of Mark Golding is simpler, but only if you vote against those risers. And when I say risers, I'm talking about people like Ian Hills, Dayton Campbell. You have, let me see who else now are in the seats now. You have that fellow called Lawrence Rowe, who Karen Cross will tell you sabotage his seat and now he want to represent Central Kingston. You need to make sure Bunting stay out, because if Bunting wins, it will not be Mark. If Bunting wins, it will not be Mark who will be leader of the opposition. It will be him. Mark is only holding the post for him. So you make sure say him lose in South Manchester. Make sure all those risers in East and West Hanover lose. Right? Or don't vote. You're not going to do anything to sabotage the party if you're a party supporter. You just make sure them lose. And when they lose and you vote for those that you know are old-time PNP socialists, or if you say you're a socialist, you must support socialists. Make sure that they win. Then Mark Golding will not be the leader of the opposition, or may not be. And if he is, they will challenge him, get rid of him. He will not be able to survive. And all of those people, the hangers-on and the influence peddlers that you see hanging around him, they will turn against him in a flash and pitch him out. You would have solved one problem. You got rid of a problem. You need somebody now to go up against Andrew. And Mark Golding is not that man. So it looks like we may end up having to have another 4 to 5 years, maybe 3 to 5 years of wholeness. And if we don't, we may end up with a 3 to 5 years of Mark Golding, a capitalist, man who doesn't care much about people, if you look at the way he behaves. Doesn't seem to like people at all. Only has one person to show that he likes, his wife, a black woman. But you have the cancer of a problem is all I can tell you. Choosing between two poor leaders. I will sit down and I will wait. And I will wait out Mark Golding until he goes. Because I guess you might guess by now that I'm a PNP supporter. Never voted for the Labour Party. My absence of vote would be technically a vote for the Labour Party. Some PNP people will tell you. But that is how it is. I'll wait him out. I can't tell you what to do. You have to decide for yourself. I can only give you the options and bring you the facts as I know them. So there you have it, Jamaica. A great deal of rambling from me this time around. Not showing you any stats and reading for you. But I hope I brought some clarity in terms of how I would suggest that you make a decision about who the leader will be. You have to think about it. You have to think about it. And I want to tell you one thing. Don't let nobody come tell you. Remember, look on your skin anytime you have no doubt. Look on your skin, look on your hair, look on your mouth, look on your nose. And don't let nobody come tell you about how you are suffer, people are suffer. People are suffering, we can't take no more. Look here. Is our people, is we, this inside of us, are our ancestors, the same people that traveled more than 5,000 miles at the belly of a ship, lie down shackled for weeks in sanitary and unsanitary conditions. For weeks, we lie down at the bottom of that ship and we survived. We are the survivors. Millions died. We survived. We came here and we were on the slave plantation and we survived that. We survived. 180,000 of us survived. Till now, we are more than about 5 million in the world. So when anybody come tell you that we can survive another 5 years of Andrew Holness, you don't listen to that foolishness. Let's remind them, so we are black people. We survive worse than that. Right? We are resilient people. We're not weaky and feeble. Maybe they're weaky and feeble. Now let them tell you that. So you don't allow yourself to be influenced like that. You think about the leaders that are being put up and watch them behavior, listen to them speak, watch them conduct. Mark Golding is not leader, but you can see how him operate in the management of the People's National Party. And you see how Andrew operate in managing the country, which is a greater responsibility. Mark has nothing to do more than to talk, see how him operate as opposition leader. If he can't even pass the test, that's so where you're going to send him go to a higher level for, right? My stance basically is to demand that the People's National Party remove him so that the people can have a better choice. That's my stance. But they determine that they're going to keep him. That's their business. For them party, I am only a supporter. You understand? So I am saying, don't let nobody come cloud up your mind and tell about you if you get rid of this person. What I'm trying to do is appeal to your emotion and hope that you make some stupid mistake and put somebody that they know is inadequate. Because if they had anything to offer, they would have come with the things to offer. They wouldn't try and be trying to engage your emotion because they know that you can get emotional. You understand me? So that's all I am saying. So as I said, you have one dickens of a task before you, but you have time to think, watch, pay attention, and let me know what you think in the comment section. Let me know what you think about the two leaders, which one you support, and why you support. I want to hear why, you know. I don't want to hear you talk about the best thing since sliced bread and this. No, I want to hear reasons, man. Give me reasons so we can have a nice little discussion. All right. So again, I thank you so much for being patient, listening to all this rambling of mine. Thank you for keeping me company. Thank you for sharing, because I know you're going to share. And liking the video if you like it. As well as for those who have not yet subscribed, please subscribe. And till my next video. And my goodness gracious me, the Paula Llewellyn thing is more engaged than I thought. When I do research, as you know. But it is coming up, I promise you. Anyway, until I put that video up or some other excitement come in between and I have to respond until such time. War good.